Hello and welcome to Long Toss, everybody. This is episode 218. We're going to be dissecting what was probably the most frustrating game I've watched all year. And I mean, that's saying a lot because 2023 has been a pretty darn frustrating year. All sorts of stuff to get to. We're going to get into this Jays Guardian series, the Unsung Heroes of the Year. So we're all going to mention guys on this team that probably have contributed more than anyone is giving them credit for. Injuries. The depth in this bullpen has been impressive, but we're going to test this position player depth right away here, as both Bichette and Chapman look like removed from the game. Unsure of exactly what's going on with how long they'll be out, but it could be substantial. September 1 call-ups coming fast. We're going to talk 2024, where Ricky Tiedemann fits, if Ryu is a fit to come back, and then, of course, the Shohei Ohtani saga, if you will, continues as the ownership of the Angels has come out and said some weird things about a guy you would be trying to entice to come back to your organization. All of that on the docket. I'm Scott Belford, normally joined by Adam Mack, the best co-host in the biz. He unfortunately is down and out for today, but we are live on YouTube. We're going to be going to the live chat quite a bit here, as I'm sure this could wind up being a bit of a cathartic episode as we basically go through therapy for the next couple hours on what just happened here. We'll go around the horn here and introduce all our guests. Comedian out of Edmonton, Sean Lecomber. Welcome back to the show, buddy. How was your weekend?
It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. Other than the Blue Jay watching, that was, I'd rather be raking leaves.
When the thing you're taking time out of your life to do, to insert some joy, just creates some sadness. It's not the best, that's for sure. Welcome back. Yeah, no, just get out there, do some gardening. Exactly. From the flight deck, Brant, welcome back, buddy. How was your day out golfing? You picked a good day to do it.
It was a great day. I missed that game. I didn't have to watch any of that, which was nice. The sun was shining, good weather, couldn't complain. Don't worry,
Joel,
about golf.
You holding up here, buddy?
Oh, I'm going into the live chat. I'm sorry. I'm my bad. But I
like it.
I'm wearing this to at least have that segue conversation to Ohtani. Don't think that I'm wearing this in any way supporting anything the Angels have ever done. This is strictly for one player and one player alone. The brand's got it.
How does he not have his own brand? He must have his own hat, right? He's got an S, an O with an S in it or something. It's got to have something going on.
Does he have his own logo? He's got it, right?
He should.
There's no reason why he should. He's his own brand at this point.
Is it some sort of ball pitching and hitting at this? How do you articulate both, even though it's cut down to one
silhouette of both?
It's a torn ligament in an elbow and a bat.
Hey, too soon.
And our iron person, always glad to have you on the show, Jen. Welcome back.
I took a nap during the game, and that was a solid decision, I think.
I don't know if everyone could tell I'm a little frazzled. Like, I honestly can't even get over how frustrated I am right now. You'd think that this would have hit already. Like, even in my brain, I'm like, why am I so upset over this one game? It's not like this team has given me much to hang my hat on over the 130 games that we've already watched. But man, between the bunt call, like, I don't understand why you're asking a guy who can't bunt to bunt. The bunt execution, the 3-0 swing from Espinal, bottom of the 8th, runners on 2 and 3, 1 out, your 2 and 3 hole hitters up. You can't score a run. Jen, I can tell you have things to say. Please.
You know what that is? That's called desperation baseball. That's what that was. They were desperate to take the lead back, and we're just essentially, throwing everything and the kitchen sink into the mix. What can we possibly do?
They had a catcher on second. Like, that's like I love Jano, but like, you're bunting to move your catcher over with Biggio, who can't bunt?
No, I absolutely. I mean, I haven't seen any post-game comments or anything like that. I really couldn't care less what the rationale was behind that, to be completely honest. But when I see something like that, first of all, I don't like sack bunting regardless. I just don't like giving up outs. To
a level where you've gone out of your way to put it into your Twitter bio.
Correct. Exactly.
Yes.
It's right there. It's been there for quite some time. But when I see something like that, to me, that just absolutely reeks of desperation. And I don't think it's the first time we've seen desperation calls or desperation decisions out there, right? And you follow that, you follow things up with, we can talk about Espinal swinging 3-0, right? Again, where's that green light coming from? Again, desperation.
Before he swung, Jen, I actually texted my buddy. I'm like, Espinal better be taking all 3 of the next pitches. And like, to swing 3-0, I just couldn't even get over it. I'm like, who's giving him, like you said, who's giving him that green light?
And the absolute kicker here is that, prior to the game, people were saying that the Jays ought to be able to score off of Noah Syndergaard, which
they did.
Right. Cool. Jays still lose the game and Syndergaard gets DFA'd.
Yeah, that's just insult to injury. For those of you who missed it, the Cleveland Guardians have designated for assignment Noah Syndergaard, who just finished handing the Jays 6 innings on 4 hits. I blame myself for why I'm so frustrated, because I truly, halfway through the game, I had convinced myself they were going to do it. This was going to be the game. August 28th, we were going to turn to it and say that was the moment when they were down to Cleveland, and yet they still had their young upstart rookie come in, hit a home run to put them back on top, lose that lead, and then still find a way. And
well, that's why it's frustrating for guys like you, because turning points can go either way, right? So it's like, you're like, this is going to be a turning point. We'll look back on this. And it's like, it may very well have been a turning point, and we will look back on it and go, that's when the slide started, right? That's when it became clear that we weren't on a level with the Mariners or the Astros or the Rangers or the Rays.
Yeah. Bottom line, that's just where it is. I know, Joel, when you look at the lack of production from the guys that you have to count on, it seems like a never-ending avalanche of it. You know, like, yeah, it was nice to see Springer start to step up, and Springer looked really good today. And I mean, Vladdy gets that big home run right out of the gate, and then honestly, it's like it didn't ignite anything in him. Yeah. He played so nonchalant and on what felt like uncaring for the rest of the time, which I know isn't necessarily the case, but what did you feel like? You're a big Vlad guy. I know we wind up in this hole every single time, but man, today was disappointing how he seemed to just not show up.
Yeah. Yeah. And my opinions on Vlad is that he is a temperamental, emotional ball player, right? Like he's full of emotions. If he's up, he performs. And when he feels he's surrounded by the things he needs, it's like a family environment, and he performs. But when the chips are down and he has to perform, when everything is on him, pretty much every night, him being that player that he was 2 years ago is what's expected of him. And every night it's kind of pitching coach that we had on a long time ago, Scott. What was his name?
Anthony Telford.
Anthony Telford. I think he talked about one of the worst things that can happen to a young star player is that booming year right off in the first 2 or 3 years that cement the potential of a player within your head. And you sit on it and you just like, but if only, and how long that lingers in your mindset, how long your decisions lay, based off of something that may never return again. So I love him, but I really feel like when it comes Bo, and if Bo's out, that's my guy. Bo's the guy who's up at the crack of dawn wanting to play baseball as hard as he possibly can, until he can't play baseball anymore, and all he cares about is getting better. Well, Vladdy is a very fun-loving guy, and I've never, besides the year where he dropped the weight, I don't think that the mindset is even close.
So just to look at what Vladdy has done over the last few years, obviously 32 home runs in 2022, a huge step down from 2021, but still a 30 home run hitter is nothing to sneeze at. But if we look at the home run totals right now, Vladdy has 20 home runs. Connor in chat here brings up Lourdes just hit his 20th home run of the season, LOL, which it is kind of funny because, of course, they move on from Lourdes, and now he hits the most home runs he has in years, right? I think he's only had a 20 home run season a couple of times, and he should be pushing 25, and he'd be tied for the lead on this team. When he was just last year, what, 9th on this team in home runs? Like, the long ball has just disappeared. Brant, Davis Schneider has secured a full-time spot in this lineup at this point, despite John Schneider's refusal to make it official. He just, every time he's in the lineup, he's hitting.
I would think, right? It just solely based on the fact that he comes out there and gets it done every time. Coming into today, I was kind of on the fence of it because I wasn't sure if it was Davis Schneider succeeding because they're putting him in a position to succeed, or David Schneider has it and he's just going to keep doing it regardless of when he comes in. But after like back-to-back days, you're facing a righty on the mound today and he still got it done. I think he might just be the guy, and I think you let him roll because he's hot. Regardless of whether or not you think he's the answer for the rest of time, he's hot right now, and that's all you need. You need somebody that can put runs on the board, and he's the guy.
Yeah, like he's got 5 home runs in 11 games.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what we talked about last Sunday. It's not even so much that I think Davis Schneider is the be all end all and the savior of this team. By no means. No. He's a 25-year-old. He shouldn't be. Absolutely, Jen. That's a great point. He should not be. But when you're struggling as mightily as this team is offensively, the lack of willingness to ride the hot hand baffles me.
I think it's the ultimate indictment of the team offensively, right? Is that Schneider comes up and he's raking, and you're just like, but he's taking advantage of mediocre pitching, right? When he faces elite pitching, he's the same as the other guys. He's out. But you give him a guy who isn't that great, he'll hammer it. And why aren't the other guys, right? You're just like, how are we all not killing these mediocre starters? Like, that's the whole point of playing these under 500 teams, is they don't have the pitching depth. They can't last for 9 innings without throwing somebody out there who isn't great. And we can't take advantage of it, except for like David Schneider.
Maybe whatever coaching he's been receiving at the minor league level has been better than what they're receiving at the major league level.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever little bug is in his ear. I don't know. I'm literally just speculating, right? Like, I'm literally just throwing shit at the wall at this point.
After that first series where he lit the world on fire, and was it 9 hits and 11 at-bats or whatever it was, he only had 1 hit for his next 6 games too, though. Mm-hmm. Like, as much as like ride the hot hand, he wasn't hot for a long stretch there, and they gave him a little bit of time off and he came back, and now he's the hot hand again. But for a long period of time, it was like, well, can he do it at the major league level? Like, have they found him out already? And now it seems to be. Yeah.
Well, that's just it, right? And like,
faced some better pitching. Yeah, he faced better pitching and he got out.
Yeah, you wouldn't expect a call up though to play better than or to have a better approach than a lineup of legitimate major league players, right? And if Davis Schneider is able to make any adjustments to the high fastball, I don't think he's going to hit the way we've been seeing, right? I don't think he can possibly keep up that pace from now until the end of the season. But for him to step in and pretty much almost make everyone else look bad, is also it's baffling.
So feel free to take the lead, any of you, on this, but I will mention Matt Chapman removed from today's game with right middle finger inflammation. He's already missed games due to this. I guess it was a weight room injury a couple of weeks ago. Bo Bichette removed from today's game with right quad tightness. Now, we did just watch the big trade acquisition at the deadline, Paul DeJong, get DFA'd by this team. Any thoughts on if maybe this front office jumped the gun a little bit on DFAing Paul DeJong?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, they absolutely did.
Yeah. I mean, realistically speaking, you know, if they were going to sit somebody, they could have, they've been sitting Davis Schneider, right? They could have sent him back to AAA. He could have been getting all those regular at-bats while Paul DeJong rode the bench, right? And then you're calling Schneider up in September anyways, or with injury, right? So, you know, very, very baffling roster management. I mean, I get it. Paul DeJong was not performing for this team, but also you don't tend to see this front office just kind of cut bait on a so-called asset. So interesting.
Pure business decision. It didn't make any sense.
Pardon?
Like pure business decision. It didn't make any sense.
No, it didn't.
Because you're just taking a guy that you just acquired and you're just throwing him away. And when you have other options that aren't going to get anyone off your roster,
a big leaguer who plays a good shortstop and third base. And it's so funny that we have shortstop and third as possible.
Now it's a problem.
And now it's a problem. Taco Time here says Chapman had strikeout inflammation, which honestly, watching Chapman today, and I try to keep a level head because I know where our expectations of Matt Chapman should be. They run into some, take some walks and strike out in inopportune times, but be a stalwart defensively where they need him. But he hasn't looked as good defensively. And my God, some of the swings this afternoon, like he was literally missing on 93-mile-an-hour fastballs down the pike, like just as straight down the middle as you could possibly get. And he's not catching up to it. Out of curiosity, Sean, when it comes to Matt Chapman, if he misses a week, is that almost a good thing at this point?
I don't. Yeah, I mean, I maybe he comes back hotter, right? It would sometimes happen with Jansen, where you know he would have a week to kind of think about it. You know, there's some guys. I mean, it's like any sport. Some guys can play a little dinged up, and some guys cannot. Right? You can have some guys that can play at 90%, 95%, and some guys who have to be 100 to get anything done. And I think Chapman, it feels like he's that kind of guy, where like you see defensive miscues and offensive. You just can't hit the ball. And, you know, so they have to once in a while say, okay, have a seat, get to 100%, because you can't, you know, you just can't do anything unless you're all the way there, you know. But I wouldn't mind. Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea for him to sit down for a week. And, you know, I don't know who takes over most at third. I guess Espinal would play at
Espinal. Schneider plays third.
Schneider, yeah. So yeah. Schneider a bunch. Espinal is going to get most of the at-bats at short. Is that, or is he going to play defensively at short?
I mean, that's where it's lined up right now, which is really this is just making the DeJong thing thing so much more frustrating. Coach Keith brings up a good point. He says, however, DeJong could have asked for a release, which is true. But if you view value in him as the front office, you are not obligated to oblige at all, right? You've got him and his contract, so you could absolutely just sit him on the bench and him be unhappy. I don't know if that's ideal either. You would hope that the newly acquired guy at the trade deadline, after 13 games of not hitting a darn thing, is a little bit more patient with his new team. But I mean, what can you say? Because the organization obviously wasn't patient with him. I just wonder when it comes to the 40-man roster this team's currently sitting with, and you've got Addison Barger. He's your number 4 prospect in this Blue Jays organization. He plays third. He plays shortstop. He plays left field. You've got Aroldis Martinez. He plays shortstop. He plays third. Aroldis, your second overall prospect, but he's only 20, but he is looking really good. He's already hit 6 dingers in AAA with Buffalo. So my question is, if Matt Chapman has to go on the 10-day IL, Joel, do you think there's any way that they actually go to Addison or to Aralvis, or do you think that this is going to be more of a move Espinal in, Schneider to third, maybe call up a Nathan Lucas, a guy that they already are comfortable with in that clubhouse, and just go with what they know?
Yeah, that makes more sense as what they'll do. Do I agree with it? I don't know. This is a pretty desperate time to play on the DeYoung thing, with it being the only bat that you acquire, the only fielder, the only guy that you acquired at the deadline that actually swings the bat. And then, that you didn't have the player knowledge or the patience to wait out. Like, don't get me wrong, everybody was tweeting out his slash line for a week. It was one of the most atrocious things. It was the most atrocious things you've ever seen. But at the same time, it's a guy coming into a new league. There's a lot of factors that you have to think about.
Into a new country.
Into a new country. There's a lot of things being. He's a career Cardinal, right? Like, that's a big move. It's a big statement. You're going red to blue, and a lot of things are applying there to a guy. And you would think that you made that deal with the understanding that he could come and be incredibly weak with the bat, but we acquired this guy for a bigger reason than that. And to cut ties with him so quickly, it screams to me that, like, when you ask me, like, what do you think the plan is here? Let's talk about Manoah. I don't know. Where's the plan? Right? Yeah. Where's the plan? Where's the long-term plan and lineup construction and team building and what you're going to be as an organization? Plan seems to be a word that, it's like Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's like, what's the plan, Indy? And he's like, I don't know, just making this up as I go. It feels like that more than anything.
Yeah, I don't know if you can just lump the Manoah thing in with that. I mean, I'm not saying the front office has a great plan, but Manoah, I got the sense just was like me, because the front office doesn't like to reveal anything. So it could have been a case where Manoah didn't want to go down, or when Manoah was pissed off and wanted some time to decompress, and then the organization makes it look like it was part of a strategy or part of a plan, but maybe he was just pissed off.
There definitely seems like there's a lot more going on there than we are seeing.
I think Sean's nailed it. That's exactly what I think. The first article written, we need to come back on topic, but the first article written about it did make it sound like he did not report. Right? That was, I think, the actual language. He did not report. And then mutually they came up with whatever. We can come back to that, but back to the Paul DeYoung thing. I mean, they gave up assets for him, right? They actually, it's not like they picked him up. I mean, whether they're
but
sure, but they still gave up assets for him. It's not like he was a waiver claim that, you can kind of toss back on the pile and not concern yourself with, right?
He's not Noah Syndergaard.
What would we be talking about right now if he was still on the team? Would we be saying, thank God he's still here to play defense? Or would we be still talking about how terrible he was hitting?
I mean, we would be still talking about, oh my God,
it's a doom and gloom
fan
base.
Young hit, yeah.
It would be nice to know that there'd be at least one major leaguer between second and third, when it could be three minor leaguers very well. Like, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but it could be drastic. And so just the knowledge of knowing that shortstop is the ball's going to be gobbled up and thrown over is a little bit of a consistency, at least at this moment. So I don't know. It's hindsight. It's playing with hindsight.
Of course it's hindsight. And just to clear a few things up in the chat here, I know Connor asks, does Davis not play shortstop? So yes, Davis Schneider can play shortstop. He has not had any reps at the position in 2023. He hasn't played it since AA back in 2022, which doesn't mean that he can't take a rep a game or two at shortstop, but it definitely isn't ideal.
No, you don't want him playing. You don't want him playing shortstop. He needs to hit.
You don't.
His job is to hit baseballs. You can't have him playing. You can't have him thinking about playing a premium defensive position and hitting.
That's not a position you want to experiment with at this point of the year.
No, 100%. So, going to the chat here, Chucharu says, oh boy, are the Jays going to clean house in a massive way this offseason if they miss no small tweaks? Now, we did watch this front office pretty much do that last year, right? They isolated the areas they thought were problems, and they attacked it full force. Now, has the pendulum swung too far the other way? I mean, hindsight's 2020, but I mean, we're sitting here approaching September with one of the worst offenses this team has seen since 2018, when they were winning 65 games. Like, it is pretty darn ugly. Jen, can you see a major overhaul happening again this offseason, or do you think it'll be a more tempered approach?
I really don't know. I guess it depends on who they want to retain or are able to retain, in terms of guys like Chapman or Kiermaier or whomever. I think Chapman's gone regardless, so I don't think that one particularly matters. But okay, to give the front office some credit, they did try to address what were the clear needs of this team. Okay, and we all thought, I think, as a fan base, that they had a good offseason, right? That they really did overall, that they had a good offseason. Joel doesn't agree, but overall they had a good offseason. They tried to address certain needs. We could pick apart different things in hindsight, but by and large, I think a lot of the fan base was relatively excited about some of the moves that they made.
Just
it hasn't worked. Pardon?
I still think like they had a good offseason. If you look at their offseason moves right now, none of them are the problem.
Right.
Like Brandon Belt's been great. Kiermaier's been great. Swanson's been one of our better relievers for the better part of the year. It's the guys that were there last year that have been the problem.
So that's what I was going to say, is that you've got this team built around certain players who you've been rolling with year over year and making tweaks around them. Mm-hmm. And if it's still not working, then maybe you do need to change who you've built this team around. That's just, that's what I'm looking at this from, because clearly going in the offensive direction versus the defensive first direction, neither one has really worked out for this team, right? I mean, at least last year they made the wild card. I don't think they're going to this season. And I keep coming back, and I don't know whether or not Atkins' job is actually at risk here. I would like to think that it is, but I keep coming back to what he said when he fired Charlie Montoyo. And the very first thing out of Ross Atkins' mouth was that he ultimately bears the responsibility for the team, right? And I think he repeated it multiple times in that press conference. And so I look at it and say, okay, last year you fired the manager. You went out, did X, Y, and Z. It's still not working. And in fact, if you miss the playoffs, it's a complete and utter failure by all accounts. At what point do we look at the chief decision maker?
I think he keeps his job based on the rationale you just explained, because it's the guys who were here before who didn't perform at that level. And so if your ownership or your Shapiro, you're looking at that and going, well, did we expect him to get rid of Bo and Vladdy? Did we expect him to make those? No, that's the core. So he built around the core that exists in a way that is probably like a plus. He made the team technically better around those people. And so why would he be fired when those people didn't perform? Because we were never going to get rid of the core of this team. Maybe now. So the next step to me would be Shapiro and Atkins remain, and we question the core.
Sure, that's fair. I do think that they had the opportunity possibly to trade Kirk, trade Espinal, trade a few people that, they missed the window to sell high. And I do think that is a failure as well on the front office. And again, to be fair to the front office, who would have anticipated Vlad, Springer, these down seasons, like
Kirk.
Who would have predicted Manoah having an utter meltdown, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you could not have foreseen these things necessarily all at the same time. There's plenty of blame to go around, I guess.
How good would this rotation be if Manoah didn't take a step back? I mean, my God.
Wow, it would be the best in baseball. Yeah.
I think it already is the best in baseball.
It might already be
much better
in baseball. So, opinion on this. Andrew McLeod in chat says, apologizing for the front office enables the behavior to continue. Now, my argument with this is that I don't feel like I'm apologizing for the front office. And I know that Andrew feels like I am an apologist. It's funny because Andrew and I have had talks in the comment section before where we're on the same page on a lot of things, but where exactly this front office is one that we differ on very, very much so. And I'm not even a huge fan of this front office, but I do have a really hard time looking at what they did last year, all of the signings working out and the big regressions coming to the players that, let's face it, it wasn't Atkins building around. It was the whole organization, right? This is Shapiro. This is the extenuating staff. So if Atkins manages to hold on to his job, they clear house coaching staff. Somebody's heads are rolling, right? Like Jen, they don't just roll it back if the playoffs are missed, which we will get into shortly, because I know it's so easy to, at this point, end of August, 2.5 out, to just write this season off. We're far from that, in my opinion, even though we are on the outside looking in, and it's not. I don't feel rosy about where we're at, but we will get into that. Anyways, Jen, if you want to tackle what heads could roll if we see Atkins keep the job.
That's a great question. Like, I feel like if they were going to fire somebody from the coaching staff, they might have already done so. Right? Yeah. Like, if you're going to fire a manager midseason like you did last year, why wouldn't you fire a hitting coach midseason this year if you really thought that was what the actual problem was? So, maybe they change some of the lower level coaching staff. I don't know that the guys that have been there that they clearly like and have relied upon are necessarily going anywhere, right? I think Pete Walker's job is absolutely safe. If I don't know,
the staff shown no reason not to be, in fairness.
Pardon me?
The staff has shown no reason for his job not to be safe.
Absolutely, right? Like he and the rest of the pitching coaches are absolutely safe, right? And then I guess it really depends on how much you buy into hitting coaches affecting players at the major league level, right?
Yeah.
What is their real role, and how much do they genuinely have an impact on a player's performance? And I can't answer that question because I am not a player. I have absolutely no idea, right? I think I said last week that whatever former player it was I heard on the Fan 590 said that, the hitting coaches, as far as mechanically, they really have very little to do with the players. That's more psychological than anything else. I don't know. To me, a guy like George Springer should know what to do. Right. And if the coaching staff is giving you an approach and it's not working, you also have the ability to change your approach or to say, this clearly isn't working for me. What do we need to do? Like,
he's not swinging for you.
Yeah. And there's an approach. I mean, that's why you don't see the Jays make many moves, because the approach comes from Shapiro Atkins. Like, it's not like, Guillermo Martinez isn't like coming up with his own things necessarily, right? It's like he's being told what the approach is organizationally, and then he's implementing that approach.
Yeah.
So he's
a face. Is all he is.
So, and you wouldn't want to bring in a new hitting coach or a new coach because maybe you're having little battles with that guy over what the approach should be. This is your guy. He's doing what you're telling him to do. You're not going to get rid of him because a new guy might balk at your approach.
He's going to listen to you now because he'll do it, and he's done it for 3-4 years or however long he's been with him.
Despite the shortfalls of offense that this front office has built this season, which has been just about as big of a failure as it could possibly have been, does this front office deserve any credit for having the best pitching staff in baseball right now, Joel?
Sure.
You always give Joel the tough ones. Joel gets the tough ones.
Like they definitely have the top pitching staff, but like to go from being the second, third youngest team with the second or third best offense 2 years ago to being a team with the best pitching staff with an offense that is nowhere in any way comparable to what it was 2 years ago seems like an absolute,
and way older.
Yeah, and way old, drastically older. Like I don't give them any credit. It feels like the window was closed under this last 2 years. It felt like it was long, then it's short. Age got older. the good players that were brought in are guys like, I think the value that we put on a guy like Kiermaier, on Varsho, on Belt. Belt is our best hitter according to OPS. This is a guy with 55 RBIs and he can't run, and he's our best hitter, and he's at the end of his career.
And like, he swings like he's trying to kill an animal. Like he swings like he's trying to murder a beaver for his family or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like he's our
his
best.
His bat path is animal death.
he's our best bat, and we need him, but he's a guy who can't take 4 athletic strides without his hamstrings potentially exploding. And when I look at like Kiermaier and Kiermaier, Varsho, the defensive run saves are incredible, but it's nowhere comparable to a guy who puts up 85 runs, knocks in 85, scores 85, knocks in 85. There's no way comparable to a guy who knocks in 40, scores 35, but has 20 DRS. It's 50 runs in difference. And it's such a shift on the offense, and the idea of it's value of players and mismanaging the idea. Like Swanson comes in, good player, but you're giving up a 4-hole hitter for a 5th guy out of your pen. Like that's not in any way comparable value to me. So it's totally on them. It's guys like Springer who are injury prone from 20 to 30. So you bet on them 30 to 40. That's not smart. It's just going age and veterans. And I get that, but that it closed down a window of a team that I didn't think needed in any way to shift their direction. They didn't get there in 21 or 22, but in 22, you downshifted the offense once. Okay. And they didn't live up to expectations. I think the team in 22, even though they won more games, was not as good as the team from 21. Okay. And now we downshift the offense again. And now we're talking about not being in the playoffs. So to me, that is completely mismanaging value of players and looking at OPS like it's a singular value. There's a difference between a guy who knocks in runs and has a 750 OPS compared to a guy like you can have 830 OPS, but you're not a run producer. Chapman is sitting at 830, 840 all year and has 50 RBIs in the 4-5 hole all season long, right? This is looking and WAR. His WAR is this and that. No, you're completely losing track of how the game has been played for 140 years and how runs have been put on the board. You think that OPS stacking that up is going to make a lineup. That's not the case. Oh, we need more lefties. Do those lefties know how to hit a fastball? No, they
Joel, what I love,
we sacrificed, right?
It's funny because I know that this is one thing that you were really loud about last year is how badly they needed a left-handed bat, but you also were very, very on the ball about we can't just have any left-handed bat. Because I remember you ranting, being like, we can't just get a bunch of left-handed bats. And that's kind of what has happened. I'm going to chat now here because they're cracking me up just about what's coming out of your mouth right now, Joel. So Simon Dennis says, I hate so much that Joel was right about the offense when he predicted this at the start of the season. We all do, Simon. We all hate when Joel's right. And then going to Heather M, she says, I'm with Joel. I'm not giving this front office that credit. So you're not alone there. Brant.
Hey.
Pitching.
Mm-hmm.
We're 2.5 games out.
Yes,
we see zero out of the offense. And when we do, it's the one time we watch Tim Mayza give up a run since the middle of July. Do you think this pitching staff and defense, if things continue the way they go, which, I know that they just lost 2 of 3 to Cleveland. They really needed 2 of 3. They probably needed a sweep, but I mean, there's still a lot of baseball left. I know everyone that just heard me say that cringed a little and really is upset. I know I hated saying it myself, but there is still 30 games, 31. There is a lot can happen in 31 games.
And the Rangers are also doing their absolute best to help us out. So
can you see a scenario where the Blue Jays do squeak into the playoffs?
Absolutely.
What would need to happen?
The Rangers continue to do what they're doing. They just lost their 9th in a row, I believe it is. 2 series loss to the Twins. And then the Astros, as much as they're the Astros and they're going to find a way to do it, they haven't been great either. I mean, all 3 teams have been scuffling right now. All one of them has to do is find a way to get some wins on the board, and we are running into the softest part of our schedule. Yeah, we lost a series to Cleveland, But we already just split this last series with Cleveland. Like, we knew we weren't coming in to dominate the series coming into it. Now you're coming into a series where you've got, what, 5 stinkers other than maybe Washington? Washington looks like they might be a legitimate baseball team right now, so that's a little one you're a little more concerned about. But the rest of them,
you should walk away with. Of course they are, as they come into Toronto, right, buddy?
Yeah. It's just the right time for them to get hot. This pitching staff's going to give you a chance to win every night. It's mind-blowing to me that you can put up 7 runs today and not win a game. Like, they put up more runs in this game than they did in the 4-game set against Cleveland last time, the entire 4-game set, and they still didn't come out of it with a win.
Nobody deserved to be picked up more than Yusei Kikuchi and Tim Mayza, and man, it sucks that wasn't the case.
You have arguably your best starter in the second half on the mound. Like, I think he's probably been their best guy, and then your best reliever, and those are the 2 guys that didn't get it done for you. It's crazy. That's not going to happen game in and game out. But the sign that they're scoring 7 runs, it's a little, you feel a little better about it. If you can get some of that production for the rest of the year, especially against teams like Washington and Kansas City and Oakland and who else in that mix, or some other stinkers, if you can get that contribution for the rest of the year, you can find a way to keep up with the Rangers who just refuse to win.
It's funny that the Jays have become that litmus test now where it's like, okay, well, if you can't get the Jays out, we'll DFA him. He's had a couple rough ones. Let's see what he does against the Jays. Because if the Jays hit him, he's gone.
The problem with the whole conversation, though, is it all sounds like bargaining, right? If the Jays go 12-3 over their next 15, and if the Rangers do this, and and if Mercury is in retrograde, and right, like, everything has to align, and they should not be in this position, right? That's the killer, is that they really probably shouldn't be the team that is on the outside looking in, where they have absolutely no control over their own destiny, because they also have to rely on other teams failing.
And they do. That's the position they put themselves in. And this is a very poignant comment here from Scott Carter. He says, so a long toss at the start of 2022 season, someone said, I think it was Craig Ballard, said that less than 2 championships during this Vlad Bo years was unacceptable and a failure. I only point this out to emphasize how much the expectations have fallen.
Well, Bautista on the level of excellence looks like a better idea every day, right? Where it's like, it isn't just you put a good guy and you have a window and you're in the thing. Like, the high watermark for the Bo Vladdy era, we might in 5 years see a statue in front of the Rogers Center that is a misplay in the outfield. You know what I mean? It'll be like, that's the high watermark of the Bo Vladdy era, and that's our bat flip. That's as close as we got to the Bautista bat flip. Is just a little injury in the outfield. That'd be sad.
I think the Jays kind of hold their own destiny in their hands a little bit here, though. Like, they do have a series with Texas coming up, and I think that one comes down to, like, we have nothing before that, and then you face off against. I think the team you're chasing now is Texas. I don't think you're going after Seattle. They're on a different planet right now, and they're not going to get caught. But I think you give yourself a chance to catch Texas.
That's the series where I think we can then, one way or the other, call it a season.
That's the moment where you'll know whether or not we're still in this thing. Maybe before that, like, if you go on a 7-game losing streak here, then it's probably done beforehand. But at that point, you'll know whether or not they can still do this thing. And that's still, what, 3 weeks away, 2 weeks away?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're a game or 2 back of Texas going into that series, you have a fighting chance.
Michael Vanderbook says, how can they beat Texas if they can't beat Cleveland? LOL.
Because
baseball is a funny sport. Right, yeah, baseball is a funny sport. And that is why, here's the thing too. And I know that this is going to come across really selfish and self-centered, but the amount of people that are like, this team doesn't deserve to make the playoffs rubs me the wrong way so much, because I'm like, I don't even give a shit about the team. I deserve for them to make the playoffs. Do you know what I've put myself through over the last 130 games? Like, they should make the play. Forget about what the team deserves. What about us, the fans, and what we deserve? I want to see playoff baseball.
You've had jet lag for this team. Not many people can say that. Like, I've experienced real, genuine jet lag. supporting this team.
Well, and that stadium is sold out. People are there. People are showing up, right?
The team's still 11 games above 500. Like, it's not like there's some shitter team that's coming into it under 500 and shouldn't even be. Like, they're not the Twins. Like, we're not looking at that. They're not the entire wild card race in the NL right now. Like, they would be, I think, the second spot in the NL wild card, maybe the first. They were closing in on that. Like,
but that's only because of the strength of their pitching, right?
Like, I'm sick of those excuses. Like, I'm sick of constantly framing this season as, you know what? I know we're all down, but if we look at it, just reel the microscope out a little bit. And yes, we're still winning the games and we're still in it. But the expectations going into this season, they were, they should be better.
But to say they don't deserve it, it's like, well, we're more deserving than a lot of teams that are in the mix right now. They're a lot more deserving than the Twins, for damn sure.
And deserve it is after 162,
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like, we don't deserve it. Like, okay, we'll let you know after 162.
The best pitching staff in baseball probably deserves a chance at the World Series, I would think. Yeah, the offense sucks, but they have probably the best starting rotation and one of the best bullpens going around right now. I would think they deserve a shot.
And you know what? There are things happening at the top of this AL that could really affect things in the playoffs, man. Felix Bautista going down with UCL problems, like you don't have a UCL problem and it just go away, right? Like, he is without a doubt the top or a top. Okay, we don't need to be that firm on it, but he's a top 3 closer in all of baseball and one of the best high leverage relievers in the game right now. I know I saw a stat recently that Baltimore has thrown more pitches over 100 miles an hour than any team in baseball, and Felix Bautista, 70% of them belong to him. So, like, that's a pretty big loss. And I hate to keep being like, if they can squeak in, who knows? But teams are dealing with injuries as well. And that is kind of where I'm going with this, is that the Jays are dealing with injuries. We just watched Eric Swanson, arguably a top 3 high-end, high-leverage reliever in this pen, go down the other day. And then they call up Jay Jackson with his 1.6 ERA. And honestly, he even looked all right today. It really sucks to need to send him out in the 11th inning when this game should have been over. Like, I guess what I'm saying is, yeah, he got hit hard, but Jay Jackson's not who I blame on this. I'm curious, Brant, when you look at the depth that this team has created in the bullpen and the fact that they do have Chad Green coming up and Nate Pearson is an option if there's a problem. Despite all the downfalls, the depth of the bullpen is the one place where this front office actually did augment the team properly, correct?
Yeah. And I think the first part of your question there, where you said Eric Swanson, arguably a top 3 high leverage guy, like, that's such a long process to be like, he might be one of the best guys in our bullpen, but you don't know because there's so many names in this bullpen right now that's like, it's going to hurt that Swanson's out. Don't get me wrong, but you have 6 other guys that can do it and do it in high leverage situations. Jimmy Garcia was doing it, has been doing it a little bit now. And it's like, well, you just slide him into that role. You still have Jordan, you still have other Jordan. And you have Tim who can do it. Like, you have the whole list of guys where it's like, before last year, if you would have lost Jordan Romano last year, your bullpen's toast. But you lose a guy like Eric Swanson this year, you lose Jordan Romano for a stretch this year. You have so many names that can be a high leverage guy behind them. It really doesn't make a huge difference.
But and you're not even burning that. You're not even burning that bullpen that often because the starters are so good.
Well, they don't let them go long enough, but yeah.
Chris in chat says 12-12 in August is where the Jays is at. Unacceptable considering the AL best era in that stretch. Mariners, who are second in ERA in that span, are 20-4. So the Jays are, I get what he's saying. So the Jays are first, the Mariners are second, but they're 20-4. Joel, do you think there's any way this team goes on a run? Like, we just keep, and it's funny because Michael says he's tired of the talking heads saying and Schneider saying, we just need to put it all together. That's not happening, right? Like, if this team makes the playoffs, it's going to be the way that they've played all year long, right?
Well, yeah, like, can they go on a run? they have the pitching staff to win every night. So that's what you can create a run off of, right? So can it happen? Yeah. And it's the same thing we said all year. We just need to see something consistent offensively to make these leads hold up. And yeah, can it happen? Yeah, but 2023 doesn't seem to be the year where enthusiasm is filled in those bats. So I don't know. And it's just such a heartbreak because the pitching staff, it feels like there should have been 5 or 6 stretches over the course of the season already based off the pitching that we've gotten where we go 7, maybe 8-0. And we would have a nice, huge gap and be comfortably into the playoffs. But, there's 2 teams right now. There's Pete Walker and the pitchers, and there's everybody else besides Bo. Bo should pretty much go with the pitchers right now, and then the other team, everybody else can just, I don't know, maybe everybody else needs to go in the bullpen for a day, right? Just put all the entire lineup there, and just maybe that'll translate over. Whatever their mental state is just dominant here and then so lackluster, and it's the same clubhouse, and it's just shocking.
Joel, I'm going to ask you a question here that's going to really put you on the spot, so my apologies. Feel free to look it up, and we can kind of carry on from here. I'm just curious if you know off the top of your head, just because you're so big on these guys. RC Cyber Warrior says Taylor and Gurriel were our best RISP, so runners in scoring position hitters last year. Do the stats match up with that? Do you know?
I don't have them in front of me, but if you look at the way that those guys hit, their hitting style is not to go up with runners in scoring position and walk. Mm-hmm. Their approach is to get something that they can handle and handle it. So that's why you look at Lourdes Gurriel, was it 280 career hitter? That comes from being a hit first mentality guy. You don't drive runs in by getting walks. So if you're tentative when you go up there and you're a guy who's building your on base by separating it drastically from your batting average, then that's the guys who are 330 OBP, but 290 batting average. There's not too many of those guys, but like the guys who are within mostly their batting average creates their on base percentage. Those are the guys who they're thinking about hitting all the time and they want to drive in runs. And that's 2 guys, corner outfielders who the history of baseball, you put guys in the corner outfield who can absolutely smash the shit out of the ball. And we forgot about that. We actually moved one of our guys over. And then, like I said, we had a 460 slugging percentage from 4 outfielders in 2021. 4 outfielders average 460. Now I bet you our outfielders, our starting 3, whoever that might be, is probably 380, 390. It's just so much slug has gone out the door.
And it's really devastating to see because the last 2 years, that I think everyone in the chat here can attest to this frustration, and everyone in the panel, we've all yammered about this last year, but the bullpen is the best it has been in so long. And I know Ian touches on it here in the chat because he's like, it's a shame to waste this bullpen. We all know the volatility of relief pitchers. Next season, this same pen could be dog shit. And it could be. We're watching career years out of some of these guys. Tim Mayza at the top of that list. Like, there's just no way Tim Mayza doesn't regress next year. Feel free to jump in here, anyone, but I'm trying to word this question properly. It's so frustrating to see how good this pitching is, and it does feel like it's going to be wasted now. I'm still really pissed that the trade deadline, they didn't just way overpay and go get a bat and just deal with the lump, because it really feels like that was all this team was lacking, is just someone to kind of, like Michael said, like the talking heads are saying, bring it all together, because that's all that seemed to be lacking. So when you've got pitching that is so darn good and you know how hard it is and how tough it is to repeat, it just seems like a huge failure to not have gone out. And even though, I mean, it was a failure from the beginning of the season, in my opinion, but to not rectify that problem at the trade deadline when you know.
I guess I would take that and ask you a question, like, because I genuinely don't know because I just, sometimes I'll follow a bit of Yankee stuff, and they said the same thing where it's like, we needed a bat, and then the front office came out and said the answers are in this room, blah blah blah, which is sort of the same that Blue Jay fans heard, was like, the people that are going to get us out of this are in this room. Like, what team out there acquired a bat at the deadline who has made a difference?
There was nobody. I mean, yes,
but Josh Bell's not going to fit in our lineup anywhere.
No.
Like, he's not DH. He's not going to play first. So where are you going to play him?
Tommy Pham's been okay. I mean, the Diamondbacks gave up quite a bit to get him. I mean, that is the problem, is that there wasn't anyone available without way overpaying. And all I'm saying is,
should have gone all out.
Maybe they should have way overpaid. I don't know. Like,
yeah, now that's the problem for Jays fans too, is like, now when we talk about what does an overpay look like, it starts with Ricky Tiedemann, right? So it's like, okay, we don't want to give that up, but it's like, well, that's a part of an overpay. He's the overpay guy. So that's what makes it so difficult. I mean, I'm sure Atkins, like, he's not a robot. Like, I'm sure he has tons of sleepless nights where he's like, what should I do? I can pull the trigger on this and it would help us this year, but then we lose another pitcher, or what, I don't know. It is a tough call, but yeah, you're right. You can't make no moves other than Paul DeJong and think that, that's okay.
I think that only happened because Bo was injured, right?
Yeah, it really did. It just, like, this team gave no reason for the front office to believe that they could pull it together internally. Like, I just don't feel like there was any proof over the beginning of the season up until August 1st, when the deadline was, that this team had it within themselves, but they were still right there in reach. I mean, Jason Austin brings up here, Rosario torches lefties. So yeah, like, there were guys that were available, and I'm not even seeing anyone out there, in my opinion, that would make that huge difference, but it's just so frustrating. And maybe I'm just yammering on here because I know how good this bullpen is.
Can you imagine if we just drastically paid and got Teoscar?
Well,
and now the Mariners are killing us.
How available was he really? Like, it was great that it came out and they're just like, oh, he's possibly in a trade, but he didn't end up going anywhere. So obviously the price was either astronomically high, where it wouldn't have made sense to make that move anyways, or they just really weren't shopping him and it just kind of came out.
Mariners management said afterwards, like, we just didn't get an offer that was good enough.
No.
Yeah. I mean, it was
they didn't even say like, we weren't going to trade Teoscar. We're in go mode in Seattle. They said we didn't get an offer that made sense.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And that would have, I don't know what that overpay would have looked like, but, like, to your point, Scott, the bat is at the moment Davis Schneider, right? They probably don't sweep Boston without him.
No.
They aren't in today's game without him. Yesterday, you know what I mean? Like, that's what adding a bat, and he's not a bat in the sense that, like, this is just a kid up from the minor leagues who is managing to have a really great run, but that's what adding a bat could possibly do for this lineup. And if they had been able to add a legitimate bat at the trade deadline, maybe the picture's looking a little bit different.
I think the one thing was, once Shohei was off the table for everyone and once Bellinger was off the table for everyone, every other bat that was out there was just shuffling deck chairs on the Titanic. It's just, there wasn't anyone else out there that was going to be better than what you might get out of Davis Schneider or Addison Barger or Relvis Martinez. You might as well just take a chance on yourself and keep your window open maybe a little longer, as opposed to overpaying for a guy like Teoscar who's gone at the end of the year anyways. Kind of the way I saw it.
I'm lost in thought.
My headphones went out, so if anyone, sorry guys.
I was like looking at Scott like, we're a rudderless ship. No one knows what to do. Are you there, Grandpa Belford? You got ya? Is he frozen? No, he's not frozen.
No, his headphones are out, he says.
Oh, his headphones are out. Oh, okay. What was the next thing we were going to talk about? Wasn't it supposed to be something like Unsung Hero? Who do you?
Yeah.
That's one of the topics.
Jump ahead and just say, you know what? We don't need Scott Belford to do that. Who would be your unsung?
We don't
hero?
have either of their guys.
Where are we starting? I'll start with Tim Mayza.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what I had on my. That's the only thing I wrote down for the entire episode. I don't even know why I wrote it down. It's a name.
Couldn't remember it.
But yeah, I'd start there. Just absolutely. The type of performance from day one all through the season that you've wanted pretty much from everybody else, and if you could patent a guy who's just performing the way you want everybody to perform, it'd be Tim Mayza. That's what we jumped on Unsung Hero, Scott. Sean
I just called an audible, man. I'm so sorry. I swung through a 3-0 pitch and made a mistake. But yeah, we just moved on to who's the unsung heroes would be.
Nice. Well done, gang. Thank you for taking the lead while I have a panic attack about my headphones.
Well, your Plan B headphones, your Plan B headphones look a lot better than my Plan B headphones. Mine would be like pink and huge. It'd be my wife's stuff.
Your wife's your backup plan. I love it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, let's get into the unsung heroes then. Has everyone already talked this or
just
nope,
Joel?
We just started.
Okay, love it. So more or less we can call this the Tim Mayza Award, right? Is that did Joel already bring up Tim Mayza?
That was his. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Okay. Brent, who did you want to give some love to on this team that maybe hasn't gotten enough of it over the season?
I have one, but I do want to talk on Mayza for just a quick, brief second. Would Mayza put up the numbers he does if he wasn't sheltered the way he kind of is? Like if you use Mayza, because like if you look at Mayza's numbers, he's got like I think it's like 57 games and like 42 innings pitched. Like a lot of that is like you're coming in with 2 outs, there's a lefty coming up, or there's 1 out, 2 lefties coming up, something like that. Like Tim Mayza's been great. I do agree that he's been an unsung hero, but like is Tim Mayza putting up a sub-1 ERA if you're using him like a Jordan Romano or like a Eric Swanson or like trying to get multiple innings out of him?
Oh, he's definitely a modern day specialist.
Right.
Like, and
they're using him perfectly with the rules that you can put in place.
Exactly, right? In the new context of how you have to use a lefty, he's being used perfectly. And what he dissects in a lineup, usually, like when you go up against a lineup like Houston and you're going through Tucker and Alvarez, and those are the bats that he's being out to dissect, I think so, right? Like, I don't get me wrong, he's not a guy who you're going to run out there the way that you would run Romano out, lefty righty, and not care. But the way that he can take that devastating lefty bat, and because there is such a deficiency of lefties coming out of the pen, right? That I think that has values even more so, because if he's not there, then who's really attacking those batters?
Yeah, I love Mayza for his role. I just don't really want to expect him to be more than his role, because that's where I think you're going to run into trouble.
I'm just saying that's as good as I've ever seen a lefty specialist for the Jays. In his role, he is absolutely doing everything I could have hoped him to do, and then
sure. Yeah, for sure.
To your point here, Brant, to your point, before you get to that, Wyatt speaks up in chat here and says that's what you want. Put players in the best position to succeed. And Mayza is one guy that they have done that with in the bullpen.
I think one guy that doesn't really get talked about enough, even though he's like the 3-hitter on this team now, is Brandon Belt. Like he gets talked about a little bit, but like what he's done on the contract that he's on is kind of insane to me. Like he's putting up a 1.8 B-WAR right now, which is right up there with like the best years in his career. He's leading the Jays in OPS now? If not, he's number 2. Like he's been battling with Bo Bichette since like June. And this is a guy that you're paying peanuts to for this whole year. I think what he's been able to do there and what he's been able to do at first, when Vlad's probably having the worst defensive season he'll ever have, and arguably the worst defensive season of a first baseman this year, it's just really nice to have that as just an option when the entire offense is a sinking ship right now.
How about you, Sean? Do you have any love to share with an unsung hero on this team?
I think it's got to be Yusuke Oshima, who is Kikuchi's translator.
Yes.
A lot of people haven't given him enough credit. He's really good at turning English into Japanese. He's really good at turning Japanese into English. He's off the field during interviews, on the field, on the mound during visits with Pete Walker. He just slinks to the background and just turns it. It's great. I love what he's doing, and I hope they sign him to a longer term deal. He's new. A lot of people don't know that he was hired.
He's this year. Yeah, the story there is kind of cool actually. If you do look it up, it's pronounced Yusuke, by the way. Just
how do you know how to pronounce?
Because I know
Japanese. How much do you know about baseball?
I know who he is.
To know that. You know him personally? Did you golf with him today?
Met him a couple times. No, he was a coach of a buddy of mine. So I talked to him for a little while. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Because he coached at the University of Toronto.
You spoke to him in English.
I did speak. I don't speak a lot of Japanese, a whole lot of no Japanese, but I've talked to him once or twice, and that's definitely how it's pronounced.
Okay. All right. Well, he's still my unsung hero.
I like it. It's a good pick.
If we're going to go that route, can we also give a tip of the cap to his weight trainer in the off season?
Just everyone that works for
anyone who helped Yusei Kikuchi get to where he is.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Just all of them. Can we give credit to Yusei Kikuchi too, or are we just the people that work for him?
Did you hear the story today? Apparently they had the strongest man on earth.
Yeah.
Did you see this story? So I don't know. I'm not into powerlifting. I mean, I don't follow the world of powerlifting, but whoever.
You don't? I would only follow powerlifting if they also ate hot dogs simultaneously. If all you're doing is powerlifting, that's not a spectator sport. No one should be watching that except
powerlifter champion of the world is, though. He threw out the first pitch, I think, yesterday. And the one guy who was knew who he was and was super excited was Yusei Kikuchi, because Yusei Kikuchi is into powerlifting. And he got the guy's number because he wants this guy to train him in the off season to hit a 600-pound deadlift, because that is Yusei Kikuchi's white whale, is being able to hit that 600-pound deadlift. So I just, for him, man. I thought that was fun. Anyways, low key and very, very, very small sample size. I'm going off of the very recent small sample size here, but let's also just give a nod to Hyunjin Ryu for coming back into this rotation, doing all of that work at his age, coming back in the best shape of his life and giving these quality innings, because with Manoah out, where would this team be if Ryu had not been able to make that comeback?
Yeah, no, that's a great pick, Jen. And we will get a little bit more into Hyunjin Ryu, but I am curious. Let's get into it right now. Let's start with this, because I really do feel like, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Before we're going to get into Ryu in just a second here. I'm jumping all over the place. The chat's like, what's going on? So I do want to just say that Jimmy Garcia also deserves a little bit of a tip of the hat, especially with what he has done since June 1st, which is 29 innings pitched, and that doesn't even include today, 32 strikeouts and a 1.86 ERA. He has been absolutely one of the most integral parts of this Guardians-Jays series. I mean, the one win the Jays managed to get, Jimmy really helped with it. So, I mean, the bullpen, right? The bullpen continues to impress, and Garcia really, after a rough couple months to start the season, really, really came up big. Okay, back to Ryu now. Who, and feel free to chime in here, chat. Who expects is Alek Manoah's job safe? I guess is the major question. Is he going to walk into a position?
No.
Next season? I don't think so either. And I think it would be malpractice on the front office's standpoint to expect that.
I think where you're going with this, I'm just going to jump right in.
Yeah. Bring him back, baby.
If you're the Blue Jays, you're offering Hyunjin Ryu a contract. Okay. 2 years, whatever. And I think unless Alek Manoah outright wins that position out of spring training, he's your next man up. He's continuing to develop, and he's your next man up. Because right now, the one thing they do lack that depth, and that scenario would provide some starting pitching depth. We're assuming, of course, that Manoah can get back on track we're assuming that he can get back on track. We're not writing him off, right?
No, you're going to give him the Kikuchi. He'll probably get the Kikuchi treatment next year, where he's got to pitch tons in spring training.
You're going to throw 32 innings and see how you do.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's the way it should be handled. I mean, if you look at what Ryu has done since coming back off of injury, it's been incredibly impressive. And where would this team be without him, as Jen pointed out? But if you look at what he has done for the Toronto Blue Jays in his 4 years, it's pretty impressive. Mm-hmm. He never really got the full Toronto experience that he was hoping for. I do think he likes the city, and without a doubt, Toronto has the biggest population of Koreans outside of Korea. And I think 2 years, $30 million. If you can lock Ryu up for 2 years, $30 million, this is something the Los Angeles Dodgers would do, right? And then if Manoah pushes his way into the rotation, then it's a win-win. That kind of depth is what the best teams in baseball have, and I would love to see Ryu brought back. I don't think you're not going to need to give him much term. You're probably going to need to go 2 years. Joel, when you start breaking down the numbers, number one, would you like to see Ryu return? And in your opinion, what would be a good deal for the Jays to offer?
And
you can go against this too. If you don't want him back, that's fine too.
No, I'm a Ryu fan. Like I think there was a lot of issues after the foreign substance, because he started to kind of hit a wall, and people were wondering, is it foreign substance? But maybe it was just a long career of throwing the ball adding up to him, and the changeup not being his pitch. He's a spin rate guy. He's never been a velo guy. So as soon as that curveball is that arm is restructured, and he's throwing that curveball the way he used to when he was 25, 26 years old, then he's back to being that dominant 2 ERA guy that he's got one of the lowest career ERAs in Major League Baseball as a starting pitcher right now. Like that's, it kind of goes over our head, but this guy for 6-7 years, even though they were injury plagued, which is the one thing that you have to worry about. But this is a Ryu that physically I've never seen in his entire tenure in the major leagues. Like the frame of him, the legs, like he came in not only wanting to recover from Tommy John and affect this team this year, but he's making a statement to the rest of the league that he wants to be in the majors for the considerable future. So to Jen's point, I think that arm is going to be good. I'm not worried about Tommy John another one coming when he's throwing 90, maxed out. And if he's efficient there and he's effective there, then yeah, I don't know, 2 years 30, 2 years 35, like
especially when you consider the ages of your other pitchers, right? You've got Barrios and Gausman and Bassett and Kikuchi. Like none of them are young guys, right? So if you can have kind of a 6-man rotation to work with, most of them are better on 5 days rest. So I mean, you could have like, okay, let's just next year, if Manoah's great, we have a 6-man rotation maybe.
And that's a great point, Sean, because if you look at Gausman and Barrios in particular, their numbers on an extra day rest is literally mind-blowing.
Ryu too.
And they've got decent numbers on regular rest. It's just like when you give them that extra day, they have that extra bit of rope to go the distance. And I mean, it makes sense. It's the human body. Sean, do you want to see Ryu return, or how do you envision this pitching staff looking in 2024?
Yeah, I guess I think Manoah, I mean, yeah, I don't know if that necessarily factors in. I'd like to see Ryu back, and I wouldn't even mind, like Joel was saying, or Jen was saying, like, I wouldn't mind a multi-year deal. And what does that look like? I don't know. I mean, it's going to be completely up to him. Did he like his time in Toronto? Did he like his 4 years? I'm sure he was treated well. And I think it's an indication that he does like the team and like his teammates, because he did push to get back as soon as he possibly could, right? He could have easily just sort of, I mean, obviously it would have hurt his contract status as well, but he could have just taken the whole time and just said, I'll be back next year or whatever, fully ready to go. But so I wouldn't mind signing him and just running with a 6-man rotation. And normally that wouldn't work because a young stud guy like Manoah could say like, no, I want to, like, let's go. I want to win a Cy Young. I want to start every fifth day. I want to be, but because of where he's coming from, you can sort of tell him, look, we don't know why you regressed last year. We think maybe it was workload related. Let's have you in a 6-man rotation with a bunch of veteran guys, and we'll just go for it. You're not going to get as many innings. You're not going to pitch as much. But I wouldn't mind seeing that as our
and baseball has a funny way of when you're concerned where you're going to put all these pitchers, of just dealing with that on itself. Like the Blue Jays have been incredibly lucky this season with the lack of injuries when it comes to their starting rotation. To rely on that for a second year is complete lunacy. So I think that going out and getting some insulation to injuries in the form of Ryu is a good move. And with older guys in your rotation, you don't know who's going to go down from injury. One thing I do think is important to point out, though, is that Ricky Tiedemann, who a lot of scouts around baseball really did feel was going to be in this rotation by September of this season, had a really, really tough developmental year. Spent most of it on the IL, has gotten all the way back to AA, but has not looked the same since his return and has struggled mightily. He's 20 years old. I'm not worried about Ricky Tiedemann, but to maybe allow him to be like, okay, I need to push my way onto this team, rather than there be like an obvious hole where he knows that that's what they're waiting on. I think that that's just a better way to develop a young pitcher than it is to just have a bunch of, especially if this team is hoping to contend again next year, going with a rookie starting pitcher that you're not sure about. Not exactly the way I'd like to go. And to count on Manoah, how can you count on Manoah after this season? I just don't know.
Look, I mean, if you look at some of the spots we put like Nate Pearson in, if you go back in time a couple of years, like we would put him in games where like we need a guy, and he would go in against the Astros in Houston. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, that doesn't make sense. So like, it would be nice to sort of cherry pick Tiedemann into certain spots where it's like, okay, the Tigers in Detroit or whatever, like we did with Manoah this year. It'd be nice to sort of cherry pick spots rather than have him, like you said, go in at just under the gun.
Yeah. So, I mean,
and maybe it makes sense for a debut at 23, as opposed to 2021, like, so maybe that's where his development takes him. Especially lefty pitchers usually are known for developing a little bit later. So it's just like, that might play to it, but your depth right now isn't coming so much from your youth. So you have to build youth off your established veteran players to stay competitive next year, right? Like, you can't, a 6-man rotation is with 5 of those 6 guys being mostly over 30. I think Barrios will be 30 next year. Is that right? Everybody else is a nice amount over 30. So it's pretty much a bunch of guys who would love that built-in day. So yeah.
All very good points. Before we get to our topics, we are going to talk some Shohei Ohtani, and I'm going to do a quick plug here. By the way, there is almost 110 people in the chat right now, which is awesome. So great job, everyone. If you can hit that like button, that's always great. We were up to almost 130 at a point, which is pretty close to the peak we've had all year. So thank you very much, everyone. Just a reminder, we're doing this show live in 2 weeks in Toronto, Comedy Bar East. Tickets are on sale right now. The tickets are pinned as the top comment in the chat as we currently speak. We are going to have, and he's back on the team, so it looks like it's happening. Jay Jackson is coming down. We've got the lovely Jen we're going to get to meet in person. That's pretty exciting. We've got Blake Murphy from Sportsnet and Jays Talk Plus. We've got Julia Cruz coming down from MLB.com. Johnny G of Gate 14, the king of Toronto podcast. And then there also may be a special surprise guest. So a little tease there. Again, tickets are going quickly.
Come on now. So is that somebody on the roster? Is that
it might be someone on the roster, Sean, but we can't mention them until they confirm.
Okay, all right, okay.
Okay. Shohei Ohtani.
Before you move on, how much does it speak to our fan base that in the most doom and gloom time after that game, the viewership is way up?
It is. It just shows you how much Jays fans care, and when they're going badly,
they love pain.
As much shit
pain.
as we give Yankees fans, oh man, we love being in the mud too sometimes.
Because when you win a game, when you win a game, you can just go back to real life. You can just go back to
you're just happy. You just move on. I don't need to hear about it.
I go on with my life.
With my kids for the first time in weeks. Why
be
not?
a dad. Yeah.
But if you lose, you're like, I'm gonna have to wallow in that, because if you as a fan, there's two things that can happen. You win and you kind of celebrate a win, and if you lose, you're like, I'm gonna have to wallow in this hot tub of pain.
Yeah.
And turn the Jets on. The Jets of hate, full blast, and just sit here in this hot tub.
There's more to say when you're pissed off at your team than when you're happy with your team.
Yeah, way more to say.
Yeah.
If this team was winning right now, we'd have so many different outside of baseball topics we'd be touching on right now, because
we'd be done with the Jays.
Fine, exactly.
Your ticket sales in Toronto would be awful.
It's the Moneyball line, though. I like winning, but I hate losing, right?
Yeah.
There's almost more passion in losing than there is in winning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's get to the fact that, Joel, you've come prepared with your Angels hat on, ready to talk all about Shohei Ohtani. Angels general manager Perry Mananassian revealed that the Angels offered to do an MRI on Shohei Ohtani's arm earlier this month, but Shohei and his agent refused because they didn't think it was necessary. To which then the Shohei Ohtani camp came out and said that it was not necessary. He was 100% going into the start that he wound up tearing his UCL during. And now we're in this weird spot where it seemed like, so my initial response when Shohei Ohtani wound up on the injured list is I was like, oh my God, this actually increases the chances the Angels might actually be able to retain the guy, because he's comfortable with the organization. He knows the ins and outs of the Los Angeles Angels. He is aware of how their rehab works. And if he needs to miss substantial time, the Angels seems like a soft landing spot. But after that, you're like, what are the Angels doing outside of they already know he's going elsewhere and now they're acting out a little bit? It almost seems
that's 100% what it is.
Right? They're being childish, right?
It's exactly what it is.
Or they're being honest and trying to protect their own brand, right? I mean, like that's a possibility.
Trying to throw it on him,
Well, but you're like your brand is already, like, that's the thing. If you're an organization like the Angels, sometimes having a Shohei Ohtani or a Mike Trout is the worst thing that could happen, because organizationally you do more poorly. Everybody thinks you're a terrible organization, so everybody thinks
they are.
He's amazing. And Trout's amazing, and the Angels are the worst. So you're tired of getting shit on. You're tired of having everything come at you, and you're like, wait a minute, this UCL bullshit isn't on us. It's on him and his people.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's what they're thinking. They're thinking, like, this UCL shit isn't our problem. This is him.
There's so many ways that they could have changed that narrative.
Excuses for when he leaves. They're setting up excuses.
There's so many ways that they could have changed that narrative, and this is how they decided to do it. They didn't make their team better. They didn't do anything to address the fact that their pitching staff has been garbage for 4 years, or the fact that they just ruined their players' lives for the past 5 years. But they're just going to go and throw blame elsewhere, being like, it wasn't our fault. The best player in the history of baseball got hurt. It was his own fault. I despise this franchise.
Absolutely regrets signing with them.
That is such a good question, Jen. Yeah.
Right?
Sure
I wonder if Mike Trout regrets it. And that was only 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure he does. I'm sure he looks back and goes, why didn't we just go Dodgers or Padres? Or we had Dodgers, we had Padres. We chose.
I think the only one that doesn't regret it is Anthony
California
Rendon.
Teams, and you chose wrong. Like
Upton, Pujols.
I think Upton loves the
reverse
they pay him to
Pujols.
do
That's
nothing.
literally what Ohtani is. Ohtani is the reverse.
I don't know. I think
Pujols
Pujols probably regrets it too. I think Pujols probably regrets that decision because, like, he was garbage for a good, what was he there, 7 years? Like, he just fell off the face of the earth, and then all of a sudden he went back to St. Louis, and he was Albert Pujols again. They just ruined everyone.
You have a management team that will go out and draft only pitchers twice.
It's what they needed to do.
I know that's what they needed to do,
but it's what they needed to do.
It seems like an 8-year-old was in charge of that decision making, right? Like
it's MLB The Show stuff.
It is. It's something that you would do as an 8-year-old when you're like, oh, just who's the top rated pitcher? Who's got all the green when it comes to pitching? Just get him. I don't even care what his name is. And it felt like that is the decision making of this lovely franchise here. So yeah, no, and to play onto it, this is all happening, and he goes with a UCL tear in a City Field, goes 2 for 2, gets intentionally walk, gets another walk, hits a double, hits an extra, it's a triple, and it doesn't stop for the unicorn. Like you're like all the comments, every single thing on the UCL tear, he's like, well, he's got no power if he's going to keep playing. The power's gone. It's a ball off the lighting and breaks the scoreboard that's on the facade, like at 107 miles an hour. Then 2 pitches later, hits one 110. Like it's just, and this is the guy that you run. He's the golden goose of the sport, and that's the guy that you want to talk shit about. Like I just don't understand it at all. And through it all, he is majestic. And he, to quote that movie As Good as It Gets from the 90s, he makes me want to be a better man. That's what Shohei Ohtani does to me. He's so beautiful in everything that he does that I just can't imagine being the person who has to type negative words about him. Right? I just don't get it.
Joel, I am shocked that you quoted a Tom Cruise movie.
A what?
Yeah, so shocking.
I'm shocked.
So out of character. So Keith Duncan says in chat, they literally drafted Mike Trout. Facepalm. And they did. And for those of you who don't remember, they drafted him right after. That's right. The next pick after they drafted Randall Grichuk, who they brought home. Look at that. Full circle. For Randall
Who's been
Grichuk.
dog shit since they brought him over.
Shocking. Imagine that. Mr. April being shitty in August. Who would have seen that coming?
I dislike a lot of teams in this league. There's no franchise I hate more than the Los Angeles Angels. Just everything they do is just the worst. They were 5.5 games out with 4 teams in between them at the deadline, and they hung on to Ohtani and dumped the farm system for nothing. They got Giolito, who's been terrible, Ronaldo Lopez, who's gone at the end of the year, and a bunch of rentals that stink for nothing. And they just wasted another season of the best player we've ever seen and the second best player we've ever seen. Just there you go. Have it. They've ruined so many years of what this. Thank you, Joel. They've ruined so many years of what this team should have been because they're just inept at their job. They can't do anything. Like straight from like the team, the build, the Tyler Skaggs stuff, what they've done to Ohtani, everything. It's awful.
Oh man.
There's no franchise worse than the Los Angeles Angels.
I have to agree.
Their fans are great. I love them.
It's a great park. It's so funny. Like
so great.
Even bringing up the kid they drafted 6 weeks ago and sticking him into the leadoff spot. What's his name? Schneebel something like that. But it's just like you're gonna bring up a 21-year-old kid 6 weeks after you draft him,
ruin him already,
and put him in front of Shohei Ohtani as Ohtani's protection. Awesome,
and he's thriving.
Really,
he's thriving. Good for him, but they're gonna ruin him too. It's everything. They're a black hole for everything that is baseball. They've never done anything right in most of my entire life since their World Series. They've done nothing right.
I love so much, Joel, that you wore that Angels hat this whole show, and as we got into it, you took it off. You're like, I can't even wear this.
Yeah, that was just a segment. I was literally wearing it for one person. I was wearing it for one guy on that team. And now that we're done with it,
somewhere else. I don't even care where it is, as long as it's not here.
I think it might be outside actually now, and I live upstairs. So,
I like as a because I'm more of a Jays fan than I watch baseball, of course, but like I don't mind having that bird in a cage. I don't mind Ohtani flittering away,
not hurting us.
Yeah, not hurting us.
That's fair.
You go ahead and stay in your little bird cage and hit your little home runs or whatever. Like, I don't want you when the Yankees, are you crazy?
Yeah, that's true.
I don't want to go into a 4-game series in Yankee Stadium and have to worry about Ohtani killing us and them going like Ohtani, and then he has to like acknowledge those loser fans. Like, oh my God. I don't want any, like Dodgers. Like, I don't like the rich getting richer all the time. Anyway, so like, is Ohtani winning a World Series and as a Dodger or a Yankee a story that I would like to follow? No.
As a Dodger, I'm okay. As a Yankee, I just couldn't do it.
No.
Yeah.
But I do want to see him win somewhere. There's no way this guy can just not win for the rest of his career.
I'd like to see him in the playoffs with a ragtag Cleveland team or something, you know? Yeah, that'd be kind of fun.
Take the Oakland A's to a playoff appearance. Why not?
Yeah.
Joel, you're really inspiring some gold in the chat here. Tay for Effort says Joel's hair actually looks great. Heather follows up. Joel's hair is magnificent. RC Cyber Warrior says, speaking of hair, Brandon Belt also has great hair. So you're in Brandon Belt category for your hair, bud.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Thank you, chat. I had no idea that was going to inspire that. I had no idea.
It shouldn't look that good after having just removed a hat. That's for sure.
That's for sure. Yeah.
He spent hours doing that before he put that hat on.
It was all pre-set up. Right?
That's why he was wearing it so high on his head.
The hat was just kind of floating on top of the perfectly done hair that he's been doing since 8 o'clock this morning.
I get it.
Off it went.
This is all premeditated. All premeditated to talk about my hair.
Shohei Ohtani gets injured, and it feels like it changes everything when it comes to what we're going to see in this offseason for suitors for him. So, Jen, can you see, we see as baseball fans the most incentive-laden contract in the history of baseball? Do you think that's what Shohei's camp is going to be with now that there's so many question marks?
I think it'll be, yes, a complex and impressive contract. Yes. I think guaranteed term and money. I think, yes, performance incentives, number of games pitched, whatever it is that they want to build into it. I think, yeah, we were all already very curious to see what he would be offered just in terms of the absolute enormity of the contract. But now if you're building in actual incentives as well, this has a real possibility of getting quite creative.
Yeah, because, you know, like you look at, there was so much talk after he went down with his arm injury. Of course, he had Tommy John surgery in 2018. And I guess the UCL tear that he's dealing with is completely different from what he dealt with in 2018. And it doesn't look like, this is, of course, all out of the Ohtani camp, so who knows, but it doesn't look like there's going to need to be another full-on reconstructive surgery, because second Tommy John surgery always has a lot less chance of success. But we watched him right from graduating high school, right? He was going to go straight to the majors out of high school, and the Japan League talked him into staying because they were like, you know what? We will let you pitch something that is so important to you. And so that's how Ohtani managed to continue to be a two-way player. Same when he came to Major League Baseball, the Angels' willingness to just put in black and white on paper that there's no way they're not going to use him as both a pitcher and a position player and a hitter, which meant so much to him. So I guess my question is to you, the group, is do you think that's changed at all? Because I really feel like Shohei still, he wants to be both. And
I think even like going back to your contract, I think he's got enough leverage that it'll be like Kevin Durant. Like when Kevin Durant signed, it was like, we're just going to give you $35 million. You can't play basketball this year. Yeah. Period.
Yeah.
So I think he's got enough leverage. His camp will have enough leverage to say, like, we know that you're not going to pitch next year. We know that you're probably not going to pitch or hit next year because you're going to be out so long with surgery. We're just going to give you the money anyway. Like we're not going to, it's not going to be incentive laden. It's just like, here's the cash.
Here's the cash for that year that you're sitting out, rehabbing on our behalf.
Yeah.
Essentially, we're paying you for that. And, you know, I wonder if he, because of his experience with the Angels, will want an opt-out.
I mean, if you look at that Manny Machado contract, I don't know who wouldn't want an opt-out at this point. Like, if you're going to get one of those mega contracts, you'd want a player opt-out, definitely not the team, but
I don't know how we got to this point with Shohei Ohtani where everyone's just like, oh, he's done as a starting pitcher or he's never going to come back as the same as a pitcher. There's 400 guys that have gotten Tommy John this year, And we're not looking at any of them like, oh, they're never going to come back.
They're all on the Rays too, by the way.
Twice
I
now,
absolutely
right?
think Shohei will come back.
Well, but that's what I mean. He's got a year off. We know that for sure. He's a year and a half probably out of throwing. But Bryce Harper's shown you can come back and still be a damn good hitter without the UCL in your arm. So he's going to probably do that at the beginning of next year if he gets the surgery in the offseason. So we're looking at a guy that's still an MVP caliber player as a hitter alone if he never steps on the mound. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, look at how much money he's going to lose. He might lose that for a season, half of a season, because it's only half of him that's missing this season. But he's going to come back and be Shohei Ohtani. Like, nobody's looking at Shane McClanahan and going, oh, he's never going to come back the same. Like, you expect Shane McClanahan to come back and be the best pitcher in the majors.
If you're recovering from a UCL tear, so you're not hitting, right?
Bryce Harper?
Well, he probably would be. I don't know what the timeline would be.
You can be in recovery from that surgery and still hit. Is that right?
Yeah. So I guess
to an extent.
To an extent, like there's
Joel
going
probably
to be
knows more.
How long was Bryce Harper out for? Was it 8 months?
5 months, wasn't it?
5 months. Okay, so theoretically,
it was 5 months.
Theoretically, Shohei could be batting towards the beginning
in June, July next year. I think is around when Bryce Harper came back this year.
Right,
and if he doesn't get the surgery, he can bat the entire season.
Right.
Bryce did it in the playoffs. Bryce had a torn UCL for the last half of last season through the playoffs, and Bryce was arguably the MVP of that team going into the World Series. It's 100% doable. He can go out and be the MVP especially if he doesn't get the surgery, he can go out and strictly be an MVP as a hitter.
I think another thing
come back the next year and throw.
I think another thing that really bodes well for Shohei Ohtani is what a beacon of light he is for baseball, and everyone knows who he is, and I think there isn't an organization out there that doesn't trust that he's just a good dude and a good ambassador for the game, because we're seeing some of these monster contracts for the first time come back and kind of bite you in the butt, right? And I'm thinking, of course, of Wander Franco, because if you don't know who you're signing to a 12-year contract for a ton of money, sometimes that's going to wind up being a detriment in the end. But when it comes to Shohei, I don't think there is any of that question mark, that wonder of what he is. He's 29. He's proven throughout his career in Japan and here in America and Canada that he is a unicorn in every aspect of the game, whether it is how he is an ambassador for the game or just how he plays it. I could be wrong here, so feel free to pipe up if anyone feels differently, but I do think that there is something to be said for just knowing what a good guy Shohei Ohtani is to sign to this mega contract.
I guarantee you that every Angels front office staff member right now is rolling their eyes hard. Great guy. Like, you're not the one who has to answer 7 emails a day about why he can't park closer to the building. We don't even know the prima donna status of these guys, right? We just don't know. Not really in that world, but like some of these guys, you're just like, there's always one team it's all these teams that want the guy, and then the team that gets the guy is like, what a pain in my ass. This guy's dad texts me after losses. Like a lot of these guys are a way bigger pain in the ass than we know anything about, for sure.
When you're Shohei Ohtani, though, I think you've earned it. Like, you can park in the building if you want. Yes. I'll carry you there if I have to. If I'm
driving to foul territory, just don't.
Yeah.
Park on the.
You want to take the bullpen car to your car? Go for it, man. I'll have someone drive you out there.
Yeah, it's absolutely. He's earned.
He can do whatever he wants. His dad can have a number that just goes to the bullpen if he wants. It's fine. No problems.
Get somebody hot. My son is losing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I was going to say on the aspect of getting that big contract and the fear that you have of you giving it to somebody like Trey Turner this year, and Trey Turner kind of not showing up, or a Carlos Correa not showing up. I don't think money means anything, honestly, to Shohei Ohtani. I really just don't. No. It doesn't. He only cares.
Get it.
Yeah, he's good. It's going to happen. That's just a natural thing. But like with all the other players, I feel like $300 million in your bank account can suddenly become your focus.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're all of a sudden a guy who has $300 million coming to you, and baseball isn't as important as 10 jet skis and all the fun things that come with it. Right? So I think, but when it comes to Ohtani, I don't think anything means more to him than taxing his body to the absolute limit to play baseball until it can't play anymore, and that's all he cares about. It's just he cares about.
The thing with him too is that he's going to make money through baseball for the rest of his life, and we're talking about this contract. You're talking about a difference of like $400 million or $450 million. Like, it's a lot of money, even if he takes a massive discount. And then he's going to have endorsements here in Japan, everywhere for the rest of his life, and he never has to worry about money again. He doesn't have to play after next year, and he doesn't have to worry about money again.
This is a great point in chat too. Here it says, Tay for Effort says, I think the record of making the most money matters to Shohei, but not the money itself, which is what the top athletes want, right? They want the recognition of being the top athlete. And so even though I agree with you, Joel, that I don't think Shohei really does care about the highest pay.
Yeah, right? His performance has no dependency based on how much that money is. He's making rookie money. He's putting the same amount of effort into a season where he's got a $60 million season, right?
You know the quote, Joel, right? You know the quote. It's what the money says.
Yes, exactly.
He has his list of things he said he wanted to do. I don't know if money was on that, was it?
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah,
Brent, when you talk about that list, he wants these.
He's nailed all of it so far.
Yes, yeah, and I feel like that's a guy who can only do what he's done because those goals have stayed so true to him. So.
He wants baseball immortality.
Yeah. But I don't think that had anything to do with money for him. I can't remember, but I know he has the list of things he wants to do, and I don't think it had anything to do with money being on there. Could be wrong. I could be proven wrong on that one, but like everything was like win an MVP by this age, and he did that, and win this by this age, he did that. The only thing he hasn't done is won the World Series because the Angels are a trash heap. So when he gets out of there and starts winning them with teams that are actually good, I think this is where he looks and goes, well, that team gives me the best chance to win. I'm going there. They're going to pay me regardless.
Of those goals. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we are ready to go to topics if you four are.
I didn't. Yes.
I'll take that. I'll take that as a yes. It's so funny because we'll just give a little highlight here to Humongous, who is a real friend of the show. Obviously, he says, just tuned in, and I'm listening to this from the beginning. Somehow, after hitting a home run and driving in two, y'all still find a way to shit on Vlad. What a joke you all are. So Humongous has become a fan.
Okay, I'll take that, y'all, and that's why I like it when people say y'all, because then I know I can discredit it immediately. I don't have to let it ruminate in my brain and think about whether I made a mistake or maybe they're right. As soon as I hear the word y'all, I can just throw it right in the trash.
Did we even really shit on Vlad? I don't recall that being a thing.
You guys did.
Yeah, no. Sean's like, oh no, you did.
I don't think I said anything bad about Vlad.
We acknowledged that he hit a shot. We like Scott acknowledged that he hit a 2-run shot, and then, but what I mean, basically the point we're trying to make is that it seems like Vlad is completely dependent on whether the pitch he's seeing is a terrible pitch or not. He's not. Right. He isn't heating up. He isn't getting. He isn't like, all of a sudden I'm going to just go on a run here. It's like somebody threw me a cookie and I hammered it, and now pitching tightened up and I can't hit again.
Right.
Okay, let's go to topics here. We are getting long in the tooth here, so if we're going to wrap up by 6, we should probably do that. Brant, let's start with you, buddy. What did you bring to the table today to talk about?
I did not do a very good job bringing a topic to the table. I got to be honest. I was fully locked in on my golf game, so I didn't have much. I do want to say rest in peace, Bob Barker. The guy we all grew up watching on TV. Doesn't matter what age you were, he was just old on TV.
It's true.
For your entire life.
That's a great
doing
point,
the prices
right.
right.
No matter what age I have been, Bob Barker's always been old.
Yeah.
You look the same no matter
He's
what.
been 90 since long before I was born. I don't know how it happened. But yeah, it's a tough one. I didn't even realize he was still alive until last week, when I want to say it was like Codify tweeted out or something like that. And then it came out. I'm like, oh, he's still alive. And then 6 days later, he passed away. So
yeah,
rest in peace, Bob Barker. That's a sad one.
I like that, Brant. Nicely done. Joel, how about you, buddy? What do you got for us to chat about, or have we stepped on every topic you possibly could have had?
I had one. I had one to throw out. we had talked about Kikuchi earlier on, and his translator being a reason why he's had success this year. Pete Walker has always been successful with lefties in his tenure with the Jays. He's been able to kind of take and rebuild lefties like a Jay Happ, and you've seen many examples of him being able to take a lefty and really get the most out of them. Besides, all of the reasons that you think that Kikuchi would be successful, is there any reason to think that he might be he was jaded on not being included on that WBC Team Japan? And that's something that he sits there being like, I am a legitimate, major league tenured Japanese ball player, and I wasn't getting the consideration to be on that roster, especially with the work that he'd done in the off season. Do you think that is something that is kind of fueling this, and that maybe he's looking to 2026 to say, hey, I want to be on that roster?
Joel, if this is the Yusei Kikuchi spite tour, then I say let's keep it rolling, baby. Fire him.
Let's cut him again next time. I'm here for this.
He does have a bit of an edge to him this season.
He does,
right?
The flair on strikeouts and stuff. He's got the kick
little
going.
leg kick, and then he just struts right off and doesn't even wait for the call from the ump, and he's questioning the ump on close calls. He gets like right back in, like, okay, out there. So I don't know.
I think that I love the little dance move, like Elaine, and he kind of has that Elaine dance move.
The Elaine energy, little
kicks. And I think he probably would have done it last year if he could get anybody out, right? Like it's just like it's hard to do those moves when the guy ropes one between the left fielder and the right fielder for a ringing double off the wall. Like
can't really celebrate not getting out.
Yeah. He's got something to celebrate, and I like it.
I'm here for it. Give that guy more money again. Jen. Let's do it.
How about yourself, Jen? What do we have for a topic from you?
Okay, so you guys, it's dealer's choice. So here's my 3. Without Shohei Ohtani, who is the face of baseball? That's possible topic number 1. Number 2, what are the Padres? And number 3, since we talked about unsung heroes going in the other direction, who would be the biggest appointment on the Jays? You can't say Vlad or Manoah. So I'm saying I think either 1 or 3.
I like 1 and 3 very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we go with 1?
1 or 3?
So who's the face of baseball without Shohei, or who's the biggest disappointment on the Jays this season, not named Vlad or Manoah? Either one.
I think for the face of baseball, it is so just damn exciting that baseball has a face again, that it's obviously Shohei Ohtani. There's no argument. He is the face of baseball. I do love this question, by the way, Jen. I don't like him, and I don't like him only because of the pinstripes he wears, but I think if it's not Shohei, you'd have to go with Aaron Judge. Or I would. I mean, don't get me wrong. I
think he's way too boring.
Yeah,
he's a nice guy, but way too boring of a person to be the face. I think it's Ronald Acuna Jr. only because he's about to win an undeserving MVP award in the NL, and nobody's even going to bat an eye because he's just what he does is so exciting, and everything he does is intense.
Yeah, he's fun.
Yeah,
but
he's playing for the best team in baseball, and he's got the World Series ring. I think he wasn't on the team when they won it, but I think he got the ring. He might get another one this year.
And I could be wrong, and don't get me wrong, because there is so many exciting, young, talented players coming up in this game right now. Ronald Acuna Jr. being at the top of that list. Ellie De La Cruz out of Cincinnati is going to be a stud for years to come. And baseball's in a really good place for the guys they got coming up. But I don't know if you were to just take a casual baseball fan that's an American League fan. Does everyone am I
You're right.
Am I not giving? Right. Am I not putting enough credit on what Acuna is?
You're absolutely right.
Am I not giving him enough credit?
If you were not a baseball person, right. if you lived in the United States of America and you did not follow baseball, you would know Aaron Judge's face. You would not know Ronald Acuna's face. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. He also.
Go ahead, Brent.
No, you got it.
No, Acuna's your guy. You defend.
No, please, you go.
I I think some of that comes with Judge being a Yankee, but to me, it's just like Judge isn't on the field all that much. And I just find it hard to be like, this is our face. He plays 50% of the games, but this is our face. Here you go. I know Acuna had the issue with the ACL and he missed that full season, but like Judge has played, what, 3 full seasons in his career? I think.
You know what? You're right. You're right. I think being in a major market like New York definitely does help Aaron Judge. RC Cyber Warrior here in chat brings up a really good point. He says Vladdy is one of the faces of baseball. Children love him, and he won the home run derby. This is all very true. Of course, he being a Bloodlines guy, right? Everyone knew who Vladimir Guerrero Sr. was. So I do think that there's some water to be held in the take that Vladdy is a face of baseball.
Yeah. I don't think our 2 names we brought up are even the only 2 possible ones. Like, I think the league thinks Mookie Betts is also their guy.
Just about to say that. Yeah.
Like, he's got his own podcast with the players that he does all this stuff on. It's phenomenal, by the way. There's some great quotes that comes out of it. But like, he's doing all that. He's in the MVP races. He's in the biggest city in the league, I would argue. Not the biggest market, but definitely the biggest city to be in. He's just a star. He's won MVPs. He has a shot at another one. He's won World Series. He could be that guy, but it's just there's so many options. There isn't really a great answer for any of it.
I would agree with you though on Acuna, just because of what I looked at, that youth movement coming out of Vladdy, Soto, Tatis, and Acuna. Tatis has kind of thrown some, shade on his name, and Soto hasn't been as godly as we would have hoped the bat to be, but he's still incredible and has all the potential to be that guy. But Acuna, when he puts it together, it's
how does that look now? How does that Soto trade? I mean, I'm not really up. I don't like. Does that look terrible now? That Soto deal?
Washington sure looks good right now. And I mean, a lot of these young players have really kind of found their stride. And Soto, I mean, the only one.
Soto's numbers are pretty gross, though.
Soto hit a home run, I think it was yesterday, and it was the first home run he'd hit in like 16 games, he's like the one power hitter who went on a longer drought than Vladdy went on.
I think that's the thing with him, though, is like Powers, like as much as he can do it, it's not really his game. And I think that takes him out of the face of the franchise thing, because like his whole game is just like he gets on base a lot and he sees a shit ton of pitches and he's fun when he does it. But that doesn't really put you in like people love watching you play. Like I don't love watching Juan Soto take walks, but he's better at it than anybody else in the league.
Yeah, and what I was with Acuna, with those 4 guys, Vladdy and Tatis, and like Acuna seems the one right now who's excelling the most on the team that will probably succeed the most out of the 4 guys in that list over the next 10 years. So by the time he gets to the age of Aaron Judge, is he the guy that it was everybody's face that is that a face that because there's 3 MVPs next to it and 3 World Series potentially. So
I think it helps too that he's an international player where you have the whole world with you, as opposed to like Aaron Judge, the American, who's just got the raw America behind him, but you don't really have like the worldwide reach, whereas Acuna's got like the Latino population plus all the Americans that are watching him plus us up here, obviously. I just think he's kind of good. Yeah.
Okay, let's wrap up on my topic here. If anyone has anything else to add about the faces of baseball. Okay. So I'm just going to straight up say that I am delusional when it comes to cheering for my sports teams. I love this Jays team so much, and I have this tendency to always believe. I never say die. So if there was 4 games remaining in the season and the Jays were 4 games back, I would still be right there being like,
they could sweep.
I still got a shot.
They could sweep.
So my question for you folks is when do you finally say it's done? Because for me, for this 2023 season, it's going to take mathematical equation of them officially being out for me to call it a night. But curious where, and Keith's like, we can tell since you're also a Flames fan. So I'm, it is. It's my Achilles heels. I follow teams that lose a lot, and then I emotionally let it affect me. But curious where the 4 of you, when do you give up on this season, or have you already?
I got the lamest answer. I'm completely what you said. I'm mathematically have to be eliminated. I still, through all the stuff and flack that I give this team, I still see a pitching staff that could win a World Series.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Absolutely. That's all you need.
You get in there, and I still have a feeling that this team could go on a run, because there isn't that slot where you're like, oh no, here comes our 4 guy and his ERA's 5.10 on the season and we're gonna get mashed. You're competitive every single game because of that pitching staff, and I can't give up on that, because that can win you a World Series.
To your point, the Washington Nationals came in 2019 and almost lost the wild card game. Like, they shouldn't even have made it through the wild card game. And because they had the staff that they did, they ran through and won the World Series, because they had the Scherzer and
Anibal Sanchez was rolling.
Strasburg was the best he's ever been.
Corbin,
Corbin was still a pitchable pitcher in the major leagues. Like, they had it all together, and that's all they needed. Their lineup wasn't that great, but they just had the rotation and they just walked through the whole thing. Anything can happen, man. As long as they're not mathematically eliminated, then they still have a shot.
Sean, when does reality hit for you?
I like to pull up a little. I like to, I don't trust. I like to pull up a little earlier than no time at all. I'm more like, there's 10 games left and we're not within 2. Then I'm kind of like, all right, it's not going to happen. Like, you're probably not going to just, a team that hasn't been able to put it together offensively for 151 games is highly unlikely to find it in the final 10. Doesn't mean that I won't like.
But it's not impossible.
Not impossible, but it's so. And then if you're more than 2, so I'm like, if we're within 2 games with 10 left, let's go. It's all go. But if you're 3, 4, 5 back with 10 to play, it's just not going to happen.
Jen?
I don't sit around doing mental math as to what has to happen in order for them to possibly make it into the playoffs. I'll be really honest. I mean, this is a team, I really had to switch the way that I viewed my fandom. This team got me through, this team meaning the Blue Jays, not the specific team on the field today. This team got me through some really dark times. I'm just going to say that right off the top. I mean, I went to 40 home games in a losing season by myself and sat there watching that team. And for the very brief stint that I had media credentials, I had to shut off a lot of that emotion, right? The whole no cheering in the media room, right? And had to like pull back and not tweet as much excitement, especially if I was covering the game that day. And so it really, really just shifted how I watch my sports teams. And it's not a lack of emotion, and it's not that I don't want them to win and so on and so forth. I guess I'm just a lot more pragmatic at how I look at it. It's really hard for me to explain. So yeah, I know that's not really an answer to your question, but
no, it is.
No.
I mean, I wish I was a little more sane about it. Going to chat here, it says Scott Carter is like, it's the hope that kills you, Scott. And it is the hope, Scott, that kills me. It's the hope, Anton Dodson says today is when he gave up on the Blue Jays. He even earlier in the chat said he canceled his Sportsnet Now. So he taking action here on this team.
That'll get their attention. That'll get old man Rogers. Like, I heard there was a cancellation.
But I'll just say for myself, like, I don't think they're going to make it. I just, based on what I've seen the entire season, I don't feel like this team is going to go on some run and just bypass one of the teams that's ahead of them. But absolutely they might, and I really hope they do.
Yeah.
Right? Anything negative that I say or tweet is not I'm not hoping for their demise. I am not wishing, ill on any of them and hoping they miss the playoffs, right? I had to tone down the emotion so much that I feel like I'm still stuck in that mode, even though it's been a while.
Well, it's like our friend in chat there, Humongous, who was so upset about us talking about Vladdy. Honestly, I love Vladdy so much, and he did so well in 2021. And I just am like, there's no way this kid peaked at 22 years old. And it's just your expectations and it doesn't matter whether it's a team or a player. Once your expectations are at a certain level, you can't reel that in. Right. No. So like
you want him to be that for the rest of time.
Yeah. It either meets expectations or you're disappointed.
Mm-hmm. And if you didn't like him so much as a player, maybe you wouldn't care how he performed, right? Like maybe that is why everything is magnified and why the disappointment is maybe more than it even should be.
Yeah, because you just know that if he was 2021 Vladdy, this team's in a playoff spot and we're laughing and having a good time. And
the best time. Oh my God. Would we ever be laughing, eh, Sean?
We'd be laughing so hysterically.
Okay, let's wrap it up.
You wouldn't have the viewership though.
We wouldn't have the viewership.
True. We wouldn't have had 100 and some odd people tune in tonight.
Exactly.
We do really appreciate everyone in the chat. Just a reminder, everyone in the chat, we do have the tickets for Baseball Town, a live long toss at Comedy Bar East in Toronto. At the top of the comments there, pinned at the top there, we are going to have the one and only Jay Jackson from the Toronto Blue Jays bullpen. We are going to have the lovely Baseball Jen. We are going to have Julia Cruz of MLB.com, Johnny G of Gate 14, and of course, the one and only Blake Murphy of Sportsnet Blue Jays Plus. Get your tickets. We're only 2 weeks away. And when we're doing it live, gang, you won't be able to pipe up in the chat. But if you're there live,
you can heckle us.
Just yell things.
Away. Exactly. Just yell things. We'll even have a guy in the crowd taking your questions. It's crazy. All right. Thank you very much. We'll do the around the horn here saying goodbye. Joel, my friend, buddy. Yes. Just it's the year of Joel. Can you plug some of the stuff that's going on here? I know that with the writer's strike, you're on mute, but
my I have two really great productions that are completely stalled because of the writer's strike. I brought that up before, but that doesn't mean that other productions aren't kind of happening in the industry. And a lot of my pilots have been kind of looked over and grabbed at and approached from a non-union standpoint. So it's shut down in one facet, but other facets are kind of opening up and allowing me to see my stuff kind of come to fruition. One being a baseball series that I wrote. So I'm very excited to see that one come to life. I've been able to write a bunch of stuff and see it come to life, but the first time to see something where it's your passion meets your work is kind of this one. So I'm really excited to see it come to life, and hopefully this strike ends before Christmas, but we don't know. It's kind of similar to that the baseball strike from a few years ago, where it feels like it's just going to linger into the regular season, and then something drastic will happen. So.
Well, we're excited to see it come to life too, Joel. So we'll keep you posted, or keep bugging you about keeping us posted on that. I know before we get to you, Brant, Connor says, get the social media pages right this time, Brant. So one half of the flight deck, tell us where we can
1/3. There's three of us now, in fairness.
There's three now. My apologies.
Yeah, it's all good. You can catch us at the flight deck _ on all the social medias. Connor gave me so much shit for getting that wrong or not knowing that last time. So I had to make sure I knew what I was talking about this time. Yeah, at the flight deck _ I got it. This one, it's good. And you can find all my stuff at Brant Dubs.
Connor, did he get it?
I hope so.
I hope we're waiting for confirmation here. Okay, and then truly just one of the best follows on Twitter. I know we don't call it that anymore, but I call it that. Jen, where can folks follow you on X?
I am at baseball _ Jen. That's Jen with 2 N's. I did start a Threads account. I haven't not threaded yet. But it is there just in case one day we all wake up and Twitter /X no longer exists.
All right. And I know that my good friend Sean Lecomber, the last thing he wants is me plugging anything going on in his life. So I'm going to respect his privacy.
I don't care. I don't want you to follow me.
If you're an Edmontonian, maybe you get lucky and see him do comedy one day. But we'll never let you know where that is.
I don't want you to know in advance. Hopefully it's just an accident,
All right. Well, Sean, Jen, Joel, Brent, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Everyone in YouTube, you're the best. Thank you so much. And if you're listening on audio afterwards, well,